Hello. I'm Professor Good Spirit. I welcome you to this episode of the RKMCS Criminology Lecture Series. Our topic for today is about the foundations of criminological research. At the end of this presentation, you should be able to apply the basic concepts and principles of scientific research to your studies on criminal justice or criminology. It will only take us a couple of minutes, so I would like you to listen carefully, take notes if necessary, and complete the video. So, let's begin with a backgrounder. This presentation is introductory. It is intended for beginners or the novice. It presents the idea of scientific research and help create a strong research culture in your institution or community. Remember that you don't have to be master's degree holder or a PhD to be a discerning consumer of research. Our purpose here is to provide beginners with some background to help them become more critical users and participants of research, and to give them the tools to implement the findings in their own community or institution. Now, there are 4 questions for us to ponder in this presentation. 1. What is research in general? 2. Why is there a need to research? 3. What is the concept of criminological research? And 4. What is scientific research and how can it be done? We will try to answer these key questions, on easy terms, as we go along with this short lecture. Research in general is the process of collecting and analyzing information to increase our understanding of phenomena. This process of inquiry can be as simple as investigating through observation or as complex as experimenting to establish a cause-effect relationship for the events we investigate. But basically, research is a creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. A research activity can be an expansion on some past work in the field or may be used to develop further knowledge on a topic, or for education. In other words, research could include synthesis and analysis of previous research to the extent that it leads to new and creative outcomes. There may be various reasons for people to conduct research, but here are 8 important reasons why we need research. Number 1. Research expands knowledge. Obviously, we do research to learn more. There's always more to learn about a topic or issue, even if you are already well versed in it. The process even opens up new opportunities for learning and growth. Number 2. Research gives you the latest information. In certain fields, especially scientific ones, there's always new information and discoveries being made. Staying updated with the latest info, you'll be better equipped to talk about a subject and build on ideas. Number 3. Research is a basis for plans and strategies. For instance, in criminology, research can provide information on crime trends, and this helps you formulate your plans and strategies for crime prevention and suppression. Number 4. Research products are solid foundation of ideas and opinions. It even builds your credibility and confidence speaking of your research outputs. Number 5. Research is a basis for making decisions. Research products are used to help decision maker give their best decision about an issue. The decision maker get it discerning what's accurate and what's not, thus, helps him or her to make a conclusion. Number 6. Research introduces new ideas. The more you research, the more viewpoints you'll come across. This encourages you to entertain new ideas and perhaps take a closer look at yours. You might change your mind about something or, at least, figure out how to position your ideas as the best ones. Number 7. Research is tool for solving problems. Depending on the issue, your research can focus on what others have done before. You might just need more information, so you can make an informed plan to solve a problem. When you know you've collected good information, you'll feel much more confident in your solution. And, number 8. It shares good impact on people and the community. Research is used to help raise awareness of issues like climate change, racial discrimination, gender inequality, and more. At the same time, it encourages curiosity. As research opens up opinions and new ideas. It also builds discerning and analytical skills. Now, let's talk about a specific field in research, known as criminological research. So, what is criminological research? As defined, it is the systematic study of knowledge in the field of criminology or criminal justice, undertaken to discover or establish facts of crimes or causation of crimes. On another way of describing the concept, it is the systematic process of collecting and analyzing data which must find an answer to a problem, and to validate or test an existing criminological or victimization theory. Next, let's talk about the purposes and goals of criminological research. The purpose of research is to inform action. Thus, your study should seek to contextualize its findings within the larger body of research. Research must always be of high quality in order to produce knowledge that is applicable outside of the research setting. Furthermore, the results of your study may have implications for policy and future project implementation. One problem that often plagues progress in criminology is lack of research or slow translation of criminological research into practice. Often, a disconnect exists between those who conduct research and those who are positioned to implement the research findings. The underlying problem is that the production of evidence is organized institutionally with highly centralized mechanisms, whereas the application of that science is highly decentralized. This social distance prevails because social scientists are more oriented to the international audiences of other scientists for which they publish than to the needs of practitioners, policy makers, or the local public. Thus, as criminological researchers, it is imperative to take steps to overcome this barrier. Publishing your study may be one initial step to make your research known to the global community. Other proactive measures can be taken to encourage the uptake of evidence-based interventions. For example, you can present your research findings at various venues, such as International Criminology Research Forum or conferences. Furthermore, you can send the results of your study to local officials, policy makers, and community leaders. There are also a relatively few published studies about crimes and criminal justice, and the criminology community must unite to encourage all researchers to consider conducting research studies that can contribute to knowledge for crime prevention and justice administration. Pursuing a research project will be a challenging and rewarding experience, and this opportunity enables one to pursue an in-depth original study about a topic of interest. Well-conducted research is vital to the success of criminological endeavors worldwide. Not only does research form the foundation of program development and policies in criminal justice, but it can also be translated into effective national anti-crime programs. Research draws its power from the fact that it is empirical, rather than merely theorizing about what might be effective or what could work. Researchers go out into the field and design studies that give policymakers hard data on which they can base their decisions. Furthermore, good research utilizes methodologies that can be replicated, produces results that are examinable by peers, and creates knowledge that can be applied to real-world situations. Researchers work as a team to enhance our knowledge of how to best address the world's social crime problems. Researches are generally organized in a way that allows us to follow the logical flow of scientific process. You will typically see an introduction followed by information on research methods, then usually conclude with a discussion of results and practical implications. Research is a process used to explore observations and answer questions. But it does mean that all scientists follow exactly the same process because some areas of science can be more easily tested than others. So, there are diverse models for the scientific method. But the starting point in the process is a research question or sets of questions. There is, in general, a continuous process that includes observations about the natural world. People are naturally inquisitive, so they often come up with questions about things they see or hear. Then, they often develop ideas or hypotheses about why things are the way they are. A hypothesis is a conjecture, guesswork or estimation, based on knowledge obtained while seeking answers to the question. The hypothesis might be very specific, or it might be broad. The hypotheses lead to predictions that can be tested in various ways. The most conclusive testing of hypotheses comes from reasoning based on carefully controlled experimental data. Depending on how well additional tests match the predictions, the original hypothesis may require refinement, alteration, expansion or even rejection. A modified hypothesis on the basis of the outcome of the tests and experiments are retested, further modified, and tested again, until it becomes consistent with observed phenomena and testing outcomes. If a particular hypothesis becomes very well supported, a general theory may be developed. Scientists often find that their predictions were not accurate and their hypothesis was not supported, and in such cases they will communicate the results of their experiment and then go back and construct a new hypothesis and prediction based on the information they learned during their experiment. This starts much of the process of the scientific method over again. Even if they find that their hypothesis was supported, they may want to test it again in a new way. Research experiments are usually analyzed with statistical tools in order to determine relationships among the data. In the case of a simpler experiment, one would look at the data and see how they correlate with the change in the independent variable. Part of the scientific process is forming of a conclusion. If the data support the hypothesis, then the hypothesis may be the explanation for the phenomena. When a conclusion is drawn, the research can be presented to others to inform them of the findings and receive input about the validity of the conclusion drawn from the research. Now, let us talk about more on the specifics of the scientific process. Again, all research starts with a problem or a question the researcher will study. The research question should be stated in a clear and researchable way. In other words, the problem or question must be able to be investigated by gathering and analyzing information or data. To help you come up with research questions, you may start by identifying a broad problem area of interest in criminology or criminal justice. List all possible topics, then choose a specific interest issue or problem. Then proceed by learning more about the issue or problem. A good way to know more about the problem is by reviewing related literatures or research outputs of others. Then from there, formulate or state the research questions. It is important to look at the introduction to a research paper, which usually includes background information and an overview of existing research on the topic. This will help you better understand the context and significance of the research. When thinking about research questions of interest in criminology, there is a huge research opportunity in the areas of programs, plans or policy formulation for the following. 1. Technology and crime prevention. 2. Technology and law enforcement. 3. Juvenile delinquency programs. 4. Correction or penal administration. 5. Security and public safety. 6. Criminal justice system. 7. Organized and transnational crimes. 8. Human rights, racism, gender inequality. 9. Criminalization, victimization, and many other issues in this area. Next, formulating hypothesis. With the research question that you want to answer, come up with your initial answer to the question, which should be based on what is already known about the topic. At this stage, you might construct a conceptual framework to identify which variables you will study and what you think the relationships are between them. By then, you should have some idea of what you expect to find. Write your hypothesis, the initial answer to the question in a clear, concise sentence. Make sure your hypothesis is specific and testable. There are various ways of phrasing a hypothesis, but all the terms you use should have clear definitions, and the hypothesis should contain the relevant variables, the specific group being studied, and the predicted outcome of the experiment or analysis. If your research involves statistical hypothesis testing, you will also have to write a null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is the default position that there is no association between the variables. Next, drawing conclusions. Since statistics are probabilistic in nature and findings can reflect errors, you cannot use the results of a single study to conclude with certainty that a theory is true. Rather, theories are supported, refuted, or modified based on the results of research. If the results are statistically significant and consistent with the hypothesis and the theory that was used to generate the hypothesis, then researchers can conclude that the theory is supported. Not only did the theory make an accurate prediction, but there is now a new phenomenon that the theory accounts for. If a hypothesis is disconfirmed in a systematic empirical study, then the theory has been weakened. It made an inaccurate prediction, and there is now a new phenomenon that it does not account for. Take note that conclusions are not simply a summary of the findings and the research that you have conducted. Importantly, the conclusion provides researchers with a significant and vital opportunity to explain exactly what the research means to the various audiences who have an interest in that research. On reporting or communicating results, this is the final step in the scientific research process. It involves reporting the results typically in peer-reviewed journal articles and at conferences. The most prestigious way to report one's findings is by writing a manuscript and having it published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. Another way to report findings is by writing a book chapter that is published in an edited book. But a fun way to disseminate findings is to give a presentation at a conference. This can either be done as an oral presentation or a poster presentation. Presenting one's work at a conference is a great way to get feedback from one's peers before attempting to undergo the more rigorous peer review process involved in publishing a journal article. Now that you have learned about the processes involved in a scientific research, it is also important to know the classification or types of criminological research. In our life, new problems, events, phenomena and processes occur every day. Practically, implementable solutions and suggestions are required for tackling new problems that arise. Scientists have to undertake research on them and find their causes, solutions, explanations and applications. Criminological research is broadly classified into two main classes, number 1. Fundamental or basic research, and number 2. Applied research. Fundamental or basic research is an investigation on basic principles and reasons for occurrence of a particular event, process or phenomenon. It is also called theoretical research. The investigation of some natural phenomenon or relating to pure science are termed as basic research. Basic researches sometimes may not lead to immediate use or application. It is not concerned with solving any practical problems of immediate interest. But it is original or basic in character, which provide a systematic and deep insight into a problem and facilitates extraction of scientific and logical explanation and conclusion on it. But it helps build new frontiers of knowledge. The outcomes of basic research form the basis for many applied researches. On the other hand, applied research is that is used to solve certain problems, employing well-known and accepted theories and principles. Most of the experimental research, case studies and interdisciplinary research are essentially applied research. The outcome of which has immediate application and is of practical use to current events. Basic and applied research, further divided into three types of research bearing some characteristics feature of quantitative, qualitative and mixed type. Quantitative research is numerical, non-descriptive, applies statistics or mathematics and uses numbers. It is an iterative process whereby evidence is evaluated. The results are often presented in tables and graphs. It is conclusive, and it investigates the what, where and when of decision-making. Qualitative research is non-numerical, descriptive, applies reasoning and uses words. Its aim is to get the meaning, feeling and describe the situation. Qualitative data cannot be graphed. It is exploratory, and it investigates the why and how of decision-making. And mixed research involves the mixing of quantitative and qualitative methods or paradigm characteristics. The nature of data is mixture of variables, words and images. There are other more specific types of researches such as exploratory, correlational, descriptive, ethnographic, cross-sectional, longitudinal and case studies. But regardless of the type or kind of research, collection of information or data must be done. And depending on the research method used, the data must be collected through a systematic process. While methods and aims may differ between fields, the overall process of data collection remains largely the same. So, before you begin collecting data, you need to consider the aim of the research, the type of data that you will collect, and the methods and procedures you will use to collect, store, and process the data. The aim of your research is usually based on your research problem statements and your hypothesis. The type of data you need is dependent on whether your research is qualitative or quantitative or mixed research. The tools and techniques to collect data varied from experimentation, observation, survey, interview, focused group, ethnography, archive analysis, and/or secondary data analysis. Once the data or information needed are collected, another process in the research has to be done. They must be collated, recorded, analyzed and interpreted. Take note that research data analysis is a process used by researchers for reducing data to a story and interpreting it to derive insights. The data analysis process helps in reducing a large amount of data into smaller fragments, which makes sense. Three essential things take place during the data analysis process. First is summarization, second is categorization, and third is analysis. In each stages, you might be needing the assistance of your advisor and your statistician. Researchers rely heavily on data as they have a story to tell or problems to solve. It starts with a question, and data is nothing but an answer to that question. So, there are several techniques to analyze the data, but here are some commonly used methods. 1. Content analysis is widely accepted and the most frequently employed technique for data analysis in research methodology. It can be used to analyze the documented information from text, images, and sometimes from the physical items. It depends on the research questions to predict when and where to use this method. 2. Narrative analysis is used to analyze content gathered from various sources such as personal interviews, field observation, and surveys. The majority of times, stories, or opinions shared by people are focused on finding answers to the research questions. 3. Discourse analysis. Similar to narrative analysis, discourse analysis is used to analyze the interactions with people. Nevertheless, this particular method considers the social context under which or within which the communication between the researcher and respondent takes place. In addition to that, discourse analysis also focuses on the lifestyle and day-to-day environment while deriving any conclusion. 4. Grounded theory. When you want to explain why a particular phenomenon happened, then using grounded theory for analyzing quality data is the best resort. Grounded theory is applied to study data about the host of similar cases occurring in different settings. When researchers are using this method, they might alter explanations or produce new ones until they arrive at some conclusion. Now, when your research is ready to be put into writing finalization, there is a need to choose the format and style. Writing a good research paper is, in and of itself, a major intellectual challenge. Having to follow detailed citation and formatting guidelines as well may seem like just one more task to add to an already too long list of requirements. Following given guidelines, however, serves several important purposes. First, it signals to your readers that your paper should be taken seriously as a student's contribution to a given academic or professional field. Second, it shows that you respect other people's work enough to give them proper credit for it. And third, it helps your reader find additional materials if he or she wishes to learn more about your topic. There are several formatting styles used in academic texts, including APA, Chicago, Turabian, and Modern Language Association style. In criminological research, APA style is endorsed. This is the documentation and formatting style followed by the American Psychological Association, which is the style mostly adopted for education, psychology, and the social sciences. The major components of a paper written in APA style are title page, then followed by an abstract. Then the body, which includes headings and, if necessary, subheadings to organize the content. Then in-text citations of research sources. And finally the references page. All these components must be saved in one document, not as separate documents. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That ends my presentation. I hope that you were able to gain insights about criminological research. Of course, there are other specific details in each of the processes involved. But going back to our objective, this is merely an introductory for the beginners. Kindly like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share this educational video to others too. Till next time, thank you and goodbye.